Hello there, everyone, and welcome back to the GSL-English Podcast. My name is Gideon, and this is a podcast for all learners of English to practice and improve in a relaxed and natural way. And in this episode, we are talking about procrastination. Yes, that word that for some is very difficult to say. I'm not going to lie to you. That is my fourth attempt at this intro. I keep getting the word procrastination wrong. And I'm not going to lie, I probably will get it wrong a few times in this episode. But that's what we're talking about. I've decided to choose a word that I find difficult to pronounce for some reason. But also, procrastination is an annoying thing. I think we all do it, but to different extents depending on our personality. So in a moment, we'll just give a very brief definition of what procrastination is and what we're going to talk about in this episode. But before we do that, I hope you're doing well. I hope you've had a good week wherever you are in the world, whatever you have been doing. Thank you so much for watching, last week's episode, if you did, and this week's episode. I hope you had a good week. I don't know what you've been doing, but if you've been working, I hope you've achieved everything that you needed to achieve. And if you've been a little bit lazy this week, you deserve it. Don't worry about it. I hope you had a good amount of time to relax. And if you are new here, as I said at the beginning of the episode, my name is Gideon and I create relaxed English podcast episodes like this with the main focus of you being able to learn real and natural English. So we just talk about different things together. And hopefully you'll improve your English. So give it a subscribe. Give this episode a like. The weather's turned here a little bit in England. It started to get cold. The other day was 6 degrees, which I wasn't too happy about. It started to get cold here in England. So if you are a listener or viewer here in England, which according to the analytics, many of you are, wrap up, get yourself a scarf. I'm a fan of a woolly hat. I don't care what I look like anymore. I'm at that age where it's all about comfort and staying warm. Don't really care about style anymore. So there's my advice. A scarf and a woolly hat. Go get them to get through this winter. Now, just a little bit of a disclaimer on on last week's episode with perhaps a little bit of a misinterpretation of what I said. I watched it back and I realised how it came across. I spoke about not doing private lessons anymore because the rising cost of living here in England, I've had to find other work. But that does not mean I'm going to stop the podcasts. I had a few messages and a few private messages saying, no, please don't stop the podcasts. Or very kindly, many messages saying, thank you so much for your hard work. I wish you all the best, which was very kind of you. But hopefully you're pleased to know, or you might be disappointed to know that I'm not going anywhere. Oh no, Sunday, 10 o'clock, there will still be episodes coming, unless for 1 week it doesn't happen. But generally speaking, out of habit, there will always be GSL-English podcasts. As long as you're watching and listening, I shall keep on creating. I am a creator. And that's what we do. Okay. So there you go. So we're going to get into it in a moment, but you know what I'm going to say. Grab a cup of tea, particularly for this episode. Grab a cup of coffee. Grab a drink of your choice. Get some food. Get comfortable if you can. If you're driving, don't get comfortable. Concentrate on the road whilst listening to this. And if you're in the gym, which apparently some of you are whilst you listen to this podcast, firstly, you're incredibly motivated to work out. If my voice gets you through a workout, then good for you. But I know that would not work for me. So yeah, well done. Yeah. Procrastination. I've entitled this episode, The Procrastination Problem. What does that word mean? Well, procrastination is delaying or putting off something that needs to be done. So if we have a job or a task that we know needs to be done, if we procrastinate, we put it off. We delay doing it. And we do this despite knowing that it will cause problems later. We procrastinate. We don't do the thing that we need to do, even in the back of our minds, knowing that it's going to cause problems. So in this episode, we're going to talk about why we procrastinate, what's going on in our brains and emotions when we do so. We're going to look at the psychology behind it, and most importantly, how to overcome it. And we're going to finish with a bit of a motivational story. We love a motivational story here, don't we? So we've got one. So let's just zoom in on this word procrastination. So the word procrastination, it's that little R in the middle. It's not silent. Procrastination. So you've got the the R in there, procrastination. The word procrastination comes from Latin. So if we break it down, pro meaning forward, and crastinus meaning of tomorrow. So we've got pro meaning forward, crastinus meaning of tomorrow. So procrastination literally means putting things off until tomorrow, delaying it for another day. But in reality, when we talk about this word, when we talk about procrastinating, it's not often about time, is it? It's about emotion. It's about how we feel about something. For example, think of the last thing you procrastinated on. Mine was cleaning my van. It wasn't essential, but I know that I had to do it. And I procrastinated, and I put it off, and it wasn't about time. I had time to do it, but emotionally, I just did not want to do it. I didn't feel up to it. And I found it quite boring, so I just didn't want to do it. I procrastinated doing it until the very last minute. So we procrastinate often not because we're lazy. Sometimes it's because we're lazy, but when we get down to the nitty-gritty of it, when we get down, into the real depth of it, many times we procrastinate not because of laziness, but because we might want to avoid uncomfortable feelings. We might want to avoid fear, stress, boredom, doubt, anxiety, having to work. You know, it's not really about time. It's not about laziness. It's relating to emotions and how we feel. And some words that we might just want to keep in mind as we go through this. Avoidance. Avoidance is trying not to face something unpleasant. We're avoiding it. A deadline. Specific time or date when something must be finished. Task paralysis. When a task feels so big that you can't even start. Imagine you've got an essay due tomorrow, or imagine that you've got a work assignment that's due tomorrow, okay? The date's there. It's Friday the 24th of October. The time is always the same because the time doesn't change on this clock, but the date does. So it's 24th of October, and strangely enough, on a Saturday, you've got something to submit at school, at university, or at work. You've known about it for weeks, okay? You've known about this assignment for weeks. You've known that you've had to do it. But somehow, every time you went to do it, you went to tackle it, you ended up cleaning your room, checking your messages, even watching videos about how to stop procrastinating instead of actually doing what you had to do. So rather than doing that essay, you found things to do instead of it. Not because you're lazy, might be a little bit, let's be honest. Not because of time, because you had time, but because of emotion. You couldn't be bothered. You were scared of doing the essay, scared of doing it wrong. So you did everything you could instead of actually writing the essay, doing what you needed to do at work. If that sounds familiar, well, that is procrastination in action. That is procrastination. You're putting something off that you need to do. And I'm going to be completely honest with you here, as much as I try not to. I do procrastinate. This podcast being an example. Very often, I think, right, I'm going to record my podcast early in the week. Monday evening comes by, I don't do it. Tuesday evening comes by, I will find a reason not to do it. Wednesday comes by, I've got other things on my mind. Thursday comes by, it's not happening. Friday, I need to get it done so I can get it uploaded, and I'm doing it last minute. I've procrastinated all week and I haven't done it. And it's not because of laziness. I think for me, a lot of the time with procrastinating the podcast is because we're going to go into why we procrastinate in a moment. But for me, it's because I don't feel like I've prepared enough, or I don't feel like I've prepared an episode which is good enough for you, or it's not quite where I want it to be. So in my mind, I think I don't want it to be rubbish, so I'm not going to do it today. So it's not coming from laziness. It's not coming from time. It's, I guess, coming from the fear of failure, or the fear of it not being good enough. And that leads us on to our next portion. Why do we do it? Why do we procrastinate? The first point, fear of failure. We're afraid we won't do something well, so we delay it to protect our self-esteem. I think this was kind of a bit of an eye-opener moment for me, that often we do procrastinate because we're scared of doing it wrong. We have that fear of failure, and we just don't really want to mess it up. I've just had a notification on my camera, 20% battery. Oh, what an idiot. Why didn't I charge it up? I can even see it's all going wrong. So what I'm going to do, guys, is going to be seamless to you. But at this point, I'm going to put my phone on charge. I'll be back in a minute. And just like that, I'm back. Didn't really need to do that. I could have just had the notification that said your battery's low and done a seamless transition. That would have been the professional thing to do. But you and I both know I'm not a professional podcaster. This was all a facade. It's a lie. So that's why I'm a little bit out of breath. It took a lot longer to find a charger than I thought. Okay. Right. Could cut this out. Don't know. We'll see. It might stay in. If it does stay in, let me know. Do you like the bloopers? Anyway, where were we? Fear of failure. Talked about that. Okay. Perfectionism. Are you a perfectionist? If you are a perfectionist, you want everything to be perfect. My wife's a perfectionist. She's amazing at many different things. Actually, everything she puts her hand to, I'm not going to lie, she's pretty good at it. Quite annoying at times. But she's a perfectionist. She has to have everything perfect, whereas I'm not. As you can tell very clearly by the last couple of minutes of this podcast. Many times I think it is what it is. I do my best. But perfectionism, it can be a real reason that we procrastinate. We might tell ourselves, I'll start when I'm ready, or I'll wait until I have the perfect idea or the perfect circumstances. Well, we all know that never happens. Very often, this is a hindrance for people when learning and wanting to speak English. I won't have conversations until my English is a little bit better. I won't take classes until blah, blah, blah. I won't try and order something in English until, I'm ready. Perfectionism. The key to procrastination. Interesting one, this third one. Lack of clarity. When we talk about lack of clarity, lack of seeing something clearly, sometimes, let's be honest, in life or whatever we're doing, we don't know exactly what to do next, so we avoid it altogether. And the fourth, instant gratification. Our brains and in the society that we live in, we love quick rewards. Checking social media, for example, gives instant pleasure, instant gratification. Working on a long-time goal doesn't. Hence, we procrastinate. When was the last time you procrastinated to turn on Instagram? When was the last time you procrastinated to scroll through TikTok? We don't, do we? Instant gratification. We procrastinate often long-term goals that take a lot more work. So just a bit of vocabulary there. Gratification is the pleasure or satisfaction from achieving something. perfectionism, the need to do something perfectly, or you're not going to do it at all. And self-sabotage is one that I just added in here. You do things that prevent your own success. And often when we procrastinate, it is a form of self-sabotage, isn't it? And it's interesting, neuroscientists have found that procrastination activates the same brain region as physical pain. So procrastination activates the same brain region as physical pain. So the area of our brain that activates with physical pain when we are hurt physically is activated when we procrastinate. Your brain is literally saying, ouch, that feels bad, I don't like it. So you look for something that feels good, like scrolling, snacking if you're anything like me, or watching one more episode. So really it's quite funny. When we boil all of this down, we're not avoiding work, we're avoiding the feeling of doing the work. Do you get what I mean? When we actually think about it, we're not avoiding what we have to do. I guess we are to an extent, but really we're avoiding the emotions and the feelings that go along with it. So what happens when we procrastinate too often? When it just becomes habitual and we're procrastinating all the time? Well, let's think about it. It might start small, skipping a workout. I recently actually joined another gym, but I try to exercise as much as I can, just to stay fit and healthy. But consistency is key. But one thing I've learned throughout the years of exercise is if you procrastinate, you're not going to exercise. For example, if you sit at home and think, right, I'll exercise a bit later, you're not going to do it. And it's so easy to think, right, I will exercise tomorrow. But then what happens is once you skip that workout, that thought process, your brain starts to think, well, that was easy, I enjoyed that. So the next day you think, oh, do you know what, I'll put it off to Thursday. Or on Monday, perhaps you think, right, I'm going to exercise this week. I've got a week. I'll do it on Wednesday. Perhaps you've got an email that you need to send. Deadline's on Friday. You could send it on Monday, but you just leave it. And over time, this really builds up, and it leads to stress, leads to guilt. Oh, I should have exercised. I should have sent that email. And even can lower self-confidence. It can lower our belief in ourselves. So there's a bit of a cycle here, isn't there? When we talk about a cycle, it's a series of events that happen again and again. So we could call this the procrastination cycle. That's an interesting bit of pronunciation there. Try that with me. Procrastination cycle. My brain went dead then. Part one of the cycle, we delay the task. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it later. I'll do it at the end of the week. Second part of the cycle, we feel anxious about not doing it. So we're not doing it because we don't want to, but actually we're starting to feel worse. We're starting to feel worried. We're starting to feel anxious because we're not doing it. So what do? Well, you do part three of that cycle. You distract yourself to avoid the anxiety, to avoid the worry. So you go on your phone, you clean your room, you do a task that really is not that important, but you do it to distract yourself from the feeling that you are procrastinating. And then that leads to the fourth part of the cycle. You feel guilty, and then it repeats. So you delay, you worry, distract, feel guilty. And when we talk about feeling guilty, it's a bad feeling when you've done something wrong. And when we procrastinate, it does have that element of guilt, doesn't it? Thinking, not deep down like we've committed a crime. Hopefully not. But you get that element of guilt, like, I should have done it. And then you start a bit of self-sabotage. You start putting yourself down. Hence why it affects your self-confidence. And this in turn affects our momentum. Momentum is the energy or force that keeps things moving forward. So we just kind of get stuck in this cycle, and then our productive momentum is greatly hindered. So the question is, how do we overcome it? How do we stop procrastinating? Now, I think it's important to say at this point that we are all just human at the end of the day, aren't we? We're not looking to be superhuman. Sometimes we will just procrastinate on matters that aren't that important. They're just annoying. For example, the washing up. I've got this you can't see it, but I've got another set of notes that just help me with my thoughts and preparations throughout the week. But if we have people around for dinner, I always say to myself, I'll do the washing up once they've left. My wife does the cooking, incredible cook. So in our house, the rule is whoever does the cooking doesn't do the washing up. Or generally, sometimes we'll do it together. But what do? Oh, I'll do it tomorrow morning. I won't do it Saturday night. I'll do it tomorrow morning. Okay, that's procrastination, but it's not going to kill us, is it? It just means you've got to wake up Sunday morning and do the washing up, which will just be annoying Sunday morning. So there is an element of procrastination that is just human nature. But on the flip side of that, would you agree that there's part of procrastination which actually affects our productivity, affects our momentum, in turn affecting our progress in things? And that's what we're talking about overcoming. We're not talking about just that natural procrastination that we have, procrastinating on things that could affect our lives. So here's some suggestions that I've kind of accumulated from different sources, and some of these might work for you, some of them might not. The first is the 2-minute rule. If it takes less than 2 minutes, do it immediately. For bigger tasks, just start for 2 minutes. You'll often keep going. There's a lot to this. Do you make your bed in the morning? I don't every morning. I should do. If it takes less than 2 minutes, do it immediately. But if we're in a rush, we think, I'll make the bed when I get home. So that's kind of a rule. If it takes less than 2 minutes, just do it. Just get it done. You'll thank yourself later. But this is the interesting part. For bigger tasks, tell yourself, I'll just start it for 2 minutes. I'll do it for 2 minutes. And what happens is you'll find that you'll often keep going for 5 minutes. You'll go for 10 minutes. And sometimes you end up completing the task altogether. It's a little bit of an idea there. Rather than thinking about completing the whole thing, just think, okay, I'll do it for 2 minutes. If it works out, great. You'll find that you probably will keep on going. But if it doesn't work out, move on to something else. Time chunking. I don't know if this is the technical term, but it's what I call it. Break big tasks into smaller, easier steps. For example, instead of write my essay, start with write the first paragraph. Write the introduction. And let's imagine that you've got an essay due on Monday and you've got a week to do it. Rather than sitting down for the week every night thinking, I've got to write my essay. Chunk it. Put it into chunks. Right, I'm going to write one paragraph. I'm going to write the next paragraph another night. But that kind of, it stops the fear a little bit, doesn't it? It stops the worry, and it can be a hindrance in procrastination. It just stops that kind of process from that cycle from kicking in. The next suggestion is time blocking. Set specific times for work. For example, I'll study English from 6 to 6:30. If you've got the willpower to do this is a brilliant one, and it's one that really helps me. So, for example, I will think if I'm I don't know, let's say it's 2:00 and I've got the podcast to write. I will think, right, I'm going to record my podcast at 3:00. So from 2 to 3, I'm chilling. But I know at 3:00, that's when I record. I know this doesn't work for some people because actually that time frame creates more stress and more worry. But for you, that might work. Another suggestion, remove distractions. If you've got something to do, turn off notifications, move your phone, or use apps that block social media. Brilliant exercise. I like this next point. Reward yourself. If you're naturally a procrastinator, if you finish a small task, give yourself a little treat. Grab a biscuit from the biscuit tin. Sit down and make yourself a cuppa. Not every time. If you've got a habit of procrastinating and for one time you don't procrastinate, That's a win. Reward yourself. Give yourself a little treat. This is a good point. Visualize success. Visualize how good you are going to feel once that task is done. Imagine how good it's going to feel once it's completed. If you've got that essay looming over you, that work project that you've just got to get done, imagine what a relief, what a weight off your shoulders that's going to be once it's finished. Visualize that. Get that feeling in your head, and that could be the encouragement to get up and do it and stop procrastinating. And finally, forgive yourself. Don't beat yourself up for procrastinating. It happens. Be kind, start again, and just find ways to not procrastinate so much, but don't be too harsh on yourself. So some vocabulary from that point. A distraction, remove distractions. A distraction is something that takes your attention away. Visualize, to imagine, to picture something in your mind. And a reward is something positive you give yourself for completing a goal. So if we look at this, procrastination, it's not about being lazy. It's about avoiding emotions. It's a battle between our present self, how we are right now, and our future self. So if we were to tie all of this together, to beat procrastination, start small, manage your environment, and be kind to yourself along the way. So some great vocabulary throughout that section of this episode. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to read them out to you now. And do some more research on these words if you feel like it, or try using them over the next week, okay? Avoidance, gratification, perfectionism, self-sabotage, distraction, visualize, momentum. Great words for you to do your own research, your own study on, or, if at all possible, practice using them over the next week. So we've got a little story now about procrastination, the email debacle. So this is from Angela Beeching. It's Angela Miles Beeching. She's a blogger, and this was her story of procrastination. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to read this story out loud. Now, this is a great opportunity to practice reading along with me. So we can shadow read, which means you read at exactly the same time as me, or you can pause after words, sentences, paragraphs, and repeat after me. Whatever you want, but it's a great way of just practicing your flow and pronunciation. If you don't want to do that, just listen and enjoy. It's not that long. My worst procrastination story. The setup. Angela had an idea she was excited about. She wanted to write an article for New Music Box, a respected online music magazine. She'd already done similar writing work before, so she knew how this process worked. Come up with an idea, pitch it via email to the editor, get approval, then write it. But for some reason, this pitch never got done. The task stayed on her to-do list day after day, week after week. Despite knowing she should do it, she kept putting it off. The inner conflict. Angela realised part of what was blocking her was fear. Fear of rejection. What if the editors say no? Fear of failure. What if she can't write the article as well as she imagines? Overthinking. She allowed the pitch to grow in her mind, turning a single email into a monstrous project. She distracted herself with smaller tasks she felt safer doing, the busier work that felt urgent, though often less meaningful. The turning point. The procrastination had been dragging on for months. Then Angela attended a weekend seminar about facing fears and doing the important work. She made a deal with herself. She wouldn't return to the afternoon session until she sent the email. With her heart racing, she sat down, typed the email, agonized over it, hesitated, and with 1 minute to spare, she pressed send. That moment felt like liberation. The outcome? The pitch was accepted, not just a one-off article. She ended up writing a multi-part series because the topic grew. That project opened more doors and possibilities for her. Looking back, she says the most painful part wasn't rejection. It was the months wasted in fear and indecision. Once she forced herself to act, things moved forward. I just thought that was a really interesting story. So thank you, Angela. Not that you're ever going to listen to this. How much time was wasted because she procrastinated? And her procrastination, it wasn't because of time, was it? It was because of how she felt, her emotions and her worries and overthinking. So it's another reason why often we need to be kind to ourselves when we procrastinate, kind to our minds, because there's sometimes deeper stuff going on. There's deeper reasons as to why we are procrastinating. But that's okay, But keep moving forward and, find ways on those important tasks that we do, just get them done. What works for us. So that is today's episode. I do hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching, as always. I really appreciate your support. Views are always going up, very slowly, but we're increasing. We're growing as a little family. Janice, the co-host plant, is doing amazingly well. She's thriving. Once again, got any tips to tame her? She's getting a little bit too big for her boots. Let me know in the comments. If you did get to this point in the podcast, I would like you to write and spell correctly procrastination in the comments. If it's spelled incorrectly, it doesn't count. Okay. Thank you so much, guys, as always, and have an amazing week ahead. Have a good one, guys.